This is OTB Sports Radio.
Well, that was quite the weekend. Some bombshell news coming your way at around about lunchtime on Saturday with the fact that Jim Gavin is no longer the Dublin football manager and they'll go about seeking a replacement who should be named by the end of the week. At the moment, it looks like Dessie Farrell is close to being a shoo-in, but not guaranteed. So the dust has begun to settle on this, 24 hours, 48 hours nearly through, and Kerry, Mayo suddenly feeling, Donegal going, a little bit of zip in training tonight.
If there wasn't a bit of zip in training tonight, then something would be seriously wrong in those counties. Like, there is certainly kind of two perspectives to all of this. There is the perspective from inside Dublin, which is the fact that they've lost their messiah, they've lost one of the greatest sports people their county will ever have, and that's the truth, and he's changed football for the better, I think. And then there's the view from outside of Dublin, which is Darth Vader is dead. But just because Darth Vader is gone does not mean the Death Star is gone and that the behemoth that is Dublin GEA is gone. It'll just be another person. That little space where Luke Skywalker fired the rocket, it's just that little bit bigger for someone like David Clifford or for Lee Keegan to come through with an All-Ireland winning goal. But I'm putting that there very specifically. Dublin will probably still be in the All-Ireland football final next year, and there is every chance that they do 6 or 7 in a row. But there is hope.
There definitely is, right? Because you feel like there's a connective tissue between Jim Gavin and several key members of the squad, most notably the captain. And as Eamon Fitzmaurice finally gets to the point in his column today, full of praise for Gavin, obviously, but does make the point that if Cluxton also goes, and I think Kieran Donnelly was making this point with us on Saturday afternoon as well, if Cluxton also goes, then it's just a completely different team, because training is different. Standards, not that standards are going to drop, but again, you have an era-defining talent and an era-defining manager, both taken out. That the intellectual property, the brain power, the experience, the knowledge, the know-how, the cleverness, all of that gone.
Agreed. Once Stephen Cluxton goes, that is when the embodiment of what Jim Gavin really does starts to perhaps peter away a little bit. Like, the erosion will take some time. Once you're this good, it will take time for that to leave the squad. There are generational talents in this team, and these are generational talents who have got the very, very best out of themselves as a result of what Jim Gavin has done. But just kind of taking that out of the squad, which would be taking Stephen Cluxton out at some point over these next 2 or 3 years, could be this winter, could be next winter, could be the winter after, I feel. That is when the real material impact is. But what happens then is if you've got a Cluxton and Jim Gavin double whammy in one off-season, then it just becomes this huge thing where everybody's not only walking with a pep in their step, they're actually looking at going toe-to-toe with Dublin in a really significant way in a significant part of the championship next year. Granted, it's only about 2 or 3 counties, but still, that would be a big change for the way the championship is currently set up.
There was a view among some people who follow a lot of sport recently that they don't think Kerry are going to be as good automatically next year, that there's just a natural regression which happens in teams. Is there a case for that? Will O'Brien be as good next year? Will David Moore continue to be as good? Like, can Kerry's players who drove them to the level they were at last year, can they continue to be as good as they were?
I think in the important positions, you've got improvements hopefully coming. You've got a goalkeeper who is a sleeper, to use that American phrase at the moment, as the potential successor to Stephen Cluxton as the best goalkeeper in the country. I know Donegal people will have a lot to say about that with the performances that Patton have put in. They've got people around the 2 boys up front, like Killian Spillane, who quietly had an outstanding finish to the season. Stephen O'Brien, who might actually be disappointed with how he finished the season, he can actually have a better season next year. David Moore is the big question, and it's something that I've been banging on about for a long time, that Mark O'Connor will go down as the biggest loss to Kerry GEA ever. But then they have the likes of Peter Crowley coming back from a season-ending injury this year. So I think they'll find a similar level to this year. The problem is, though, is a similar level going to be good enough?
Might be. Well, sorry. I mean, if they find a similar level and the 2 lads improve, as they should do from their 21 to 22 seasons, then that will be absolutely fine, because that's another 5 or 6 points, and that'll be. And if everybody else improves by a tiny fraction, then that should be enough.
It should be enough. Like, if the 2 boys improve up front, then there's no question they'll go very, very close again. The real question mark, though, is around the other 2 contenders in Mayo and Donegal. Like, you think about Donegal as this team with this potential big leap in them, and perhaps we've been wrong about that. Like, it's 2014 the last time they've been in an All-Ireland semi-final, which is really a stark statistic. Like, they haven't got back to the last four since Jimmy Guinness has left. And we still talk about this team as the potential team to actually dethrone Dublin once again. I wonder, are we getting too carried away in what they did in 14? And because they have Michael Murphy?
No, I think it's unconnected to 14, and I think it was just to do with the brilliance and the pace that they had in the team early on in the championship and late on in the league. And then injuries just stripped them of that, and they didn't have strength and depth. So for them to have that season, everybody needs to be fully fit, and they need not to prioritise Ulster. They need to scrape out of Ulster and into the Super 8s and not worry too much about what happens when they get there.
And then you have
until they get there.
Yeah, and then you have Mayo, and there was always this question about where will they get this one last kick to have one last crack at Sam Maguire, and maybe Jim Gavin leaving is that one kick. Definitely if Stephen Cluxton leaves, it's a kick for everybody, and it would be for Mayo, given the age profile in that squad. But the age profile has turned into a couple of retirements here and there, and you'd have serious question marks. So the more you think about it, the more you think to yourself, is this going to result in a changing of the guard when it comes to Sam Maguire? The answer is that probably not, but it certainly opens that tiny gap just a little bit more open. That's all. Like you said, Dessie Farrell is the front runner. If you had all the choice in all the world and all the managers were in similar positions to actually go back in, would Pat Gilroy not be the man for the gig? Given he's been there, he's won an All-Ireland, he has worked with some of these players at senior level before, in this specific camp before. He comes with his own aura that perhaps Farrell hasn't got yet. Now, granted, Dessie Farrell will have a huge aura for some of the underage players he's managed, and by all accounts is an outstanding manager. 6 in a row is history as well. This next year is a massive, massive year for Dublin. This isn't like job done, let's move on. This is the continuation of something, and I just feel that is there a bit more glue about what Pat Gilroy could bring to the proceedings next year?
Colin Keys is the fact that only 4, I think, or 5 of the current senior squad have not had some direct coaching experience with Farrell.
With Farrell, right.
Because Conor McKeown had, during the pay-per-view yesterday, said that he was actually part of the development squad's coaching ticket for under 14s and under 16s that would have had a lot of these players coming through as well. So that kind of gave him, apart from the under 21s, that gave him the rest of them. I don't think that it is actually a continuation, really, in a way. It's definitely a reset. So if you're Dublin, maybe this is the best thing that could happen, because how do they get up for doing 6 in a row? How do they feel like what they've done is not climbing the mountain?
Because that's when it's really up to these players. That's when the players actually can turn around and say about their legacy, well, Jim Gavin was obviously the best manager that the GAA has ever seen. I say that specifically the GAA, not just Gaelic football, has ever seen, and yet we still managed to go on and win an All-Ireland after him. That is quite the legacy for those players if they managed to do that. That is one of the reasons why I suspect Stephen Cluxton is probably raring to go for 2020 and win one more without Jim Gavin. And I think for the good of Dublin GAA, Cluxton needs to stay and be that glue. If Cluxton stays on, there's no issue. The argument that I make about Pat Gilroy, and it's tenuous enough, I'll accept the argument that I do make, but I think that's kind of blown out of the water a little bit. Then Dessie Farrell can come in, and there is that bit of continuation with Cluxton. I just think he's just so important when it comes to everything he brings off the field.
It doesn't seem like, I don't know what Pat Gilroy's work situation is, but certainly it was too much for him to run the hurlers 12 months ago.
Apparently that's changed a little bit.
Has calmed down a bit.
Last year was a particularly important year in his professional career, and every year is an important year in his profession, by all accounts, but perhaps the timing will be a bit better for him to be in an inter-county setup next year as opposed to 2019.
Right. As in, so he is a candidate? You're saying he's a candidate?
I would say Pat Gilroy is a candidate, yes. And it's a two-horse race. From everything we're reading, from things that we're hearing ourselves, it seems to be Farrell versus Gilroy for this, and you've got Stephen Cluxton in the mix as well, as we've got on, I think it's the back of the mirror this morning, and of course Jason Sherlock is probably going to be a name thrown out there as well. Yeah,
but is Joe a manager, or is he going to be the head coach for whoever comes in? I mean, obviously he would have played with both of those and would know them very well. Maybe he is. Maybe he's the wildcard candidate.
I think that'd be quite the appointment, giving Sherlock the reins. It'd be a great testament to what he's done over the last couple of years, because we don't actually know what's gone on behind the scenes. And if Dublin GA are giving it to Sherlock, you'd imagine he was a vital cog in Jim Gavin's setup.
That would make a lot of sense.
But he clearly was a vital cog. I'm not saying he wasn't, but in terms of actually managing the team and being in charge of their direction.
Loads more coming up on this, obviously. We're going to talk about Jim Gavin's legacy and football's future with Anthony Moyles, with Stephen Rochford and Dennis Bastick. So we're going to get somebody who coached against him and somebody who played for him. And obviously, Anthony Moyles is going to give us his thoughts as well. Moyles is actually on to talk about the sporting moment of the decade debate, which we're going to have a little bit later on. Today, it is Shane Long versus Meath's Ghost Goal. So Meath's Ghost Goal is not on it for any moment of genius or clarity, although, you know, it was a very intuitive piece of football from Joe Sheridan to slide over the line and then fish-like kick it into the net. Oh, it was totally ridiculous.
Dick Turpin without a mask.
Dick Turpin without a mask is Peter Fitzpatrick's take on...
Dick Turpin without a mask.
Yeah, so that was a fairly seismic day. And it's a full decade ago, essentially. It's 9 years ago. So it's that versus Shane Long and one of the greatest goalkeeping kickouts in the history of world football from Darren Randolph, who wasn't supposed to start that game, remember? Who didn't start that game, actually, who came off the bench for Shea Given. And then hoofed it, length of the pitch, against Germany, who were a good German team, at home in the Aviva, and you could see it. You could just see, like, oh, hang on a second. The trajectory of this ball is going the right way. And then Shane Long does what Shane Long very rarely does. Takes it down, one touch, bang. Amazing.
Immortalised.
Yeah. How are these two things even in a battle?
It's just the way the cookie crumbles, isn't it? When it comes to the most memorable Irish sporting moments of the decade. Crazy things happen at those draws when you've got hot balls in a helmet.
This should have been Galway. This should have been Galway's All Ireland. This should have been like any one of a number of things, like Joe Canning, Micheál Donoghue. That's what this should have been. That would have been a proper discussion. Nathan's not even here to make the case for his own piece.
I was in favour of that piece. I think, okay, arguing it against Shane Long, we're going to have a bit of a stretch here to find a bit of a debate. But for Loudmead to be included in one of the most memorable sporting moments of the decade, I think there is certainly a case to be made for that. I'm all in favour of this being part of the discussion we have, and who knows, there have been bigger shocks. Ireland beating Germany was a bigger shock than perhaps Loudmead beating Shane Long on this occasion.
Right, let's get into the papers.
OTB AM.
So the
Galway's All Ireland did make the list.
What?
Galway's All Ireland is in the list.
Oh, it got changed. No, there was a post. It did. Well, it did get changed because the last time we left, people in the box were like, "Oh, Galway's All Ireland hasn't made it," and certainly that was the last piece of audio that I heard on Friday morning when I was listening. So, shambles. Dublin set for new manager by the weekend, says Sports Monday in the Irish Times, and then Arsenal's problems laid bare to Lundberg. I'd say Freddie probably had a good idea. There's the Arsenal back four. Well, it's not the Arsenal back four. It's David Luiz with his hands out, and no one wants to look at David Luiz complaining. You've got some pink stuff there. Do you want to read it out?
Well, Jonathan Lewis just got a good line on things. The sort of thing that we throw out about Arsenal is kind of returning to their roots, getting back to their sense of DNA. And like he asks, what is Arsenal DNA exactly? In the popular imagination, it's probably synonymous with dominant attacking visionary football, some offspring of Herbert Chapman and the Invincibles, gene spliced with Liam Brady and violently adulterated with some mutant Martin Keown. He refers to Freddie Lundberg as a bald Freud. And then he says Arsenal players defend like every part of their body is their face, which is a very good line, very true. There's always this sense of mystification about what's just happened to Arsenal. Every player is excellent at putting on that, oh my God, like the sort of thing where you've, as a kid, or actually it's kind of like a dog when they've eaten a cushion and the cushion is kind of like fraying there on the side of the room and the dog puts on that sorry eyes saying it wasn't me. That's what the Arsenal defenders look like at every moment when they've been counted on the break once again, and it happened twice yesterday, and it's unsurprising. He doesn't exactly have the tools to work with to create a brilliant defence, and whether or not he'll get the job full-time remains to be seen. But even Allegri, who is in contention at the moment, possibly wouldn't be able to turn that into a teeth-tough defence at this moment. The London Times go with this story. England set for World Cup joint bid, but actually, from our perspective, it's Ireland set for World Cup joint bid as well, because Britain and Ireland, they're set to go ahead with a joint bid to host the 2030 World Cup and believe they have a significant chance of success. This is Martin Ziegler, his report this morning. Noel Mooney is quoted in it.
Noel Mooney is the source.
Noel Mooney, the general manager of the Football Association of Ireland. The feasibility study is positive, and there's a sense that the right thing to do is go forward. This bid is out in the front foot and very well led by the guys from the English FA, who gave a very strong presentation. It's a chance to get a really credible bid and hopefully win it. I'd be very surprised if there's not a very credible bid from Great Britain and Ireland. So it's going to be for the 2030 World Cup. They won't need to get their act together when it comes to putting together a formal bid until the year 2022, which helps because if they were going for an earlier World Cup, or if things had been like they were in the previous regime where it'd be like a decade of preparation, they might have had to get something done next year. Everything that's going on politically, that wouldn't have been a very plausible thing to happen. So they've got an extra 2 years to make this thing happen. They will be up possibly for a battle in UEFA first against an Iberian bid. Spain and Portugal are going to join forces. And if they make it out of that, then they'll likely face competition from a joint bid by Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay and Chile. They're going to be based on the historical idea that the first World Cup was held in Uruguay, and it'll be 100 years since the first World Cup. China could also be in the mix for 2030, but China feel they can't win the World Cup in 2030, so they may actually hold back for another 4 years. So it could be
it's our time.
The British and Irish versus the South Americans in, I don't know, somebody with a smarter sense of history than me can call it a battle of something.
I mean, there's been some beef between Argentina and England.
Argentina are in the bid, sorry.
Yeah.
The winner gets the Falklands.
Yeah, and the World Cup.
And the World Cup.
I'd be happy to give. I would not be happy to be part of a bid that would prevent Argentina getting the Falklands. So we can withdraw from that. But so what's your take on this? Ireland are going to, football in Ireland is such a great place. We should be telling the world to come for a celebration. Yeah,
I saw somewhere at the weekend that Croke Park could host the opening game. Was that in the Sunday Times yesterday?
I certainly saw it.
Possibly, or in one of the, apologies of miscrediting that. I certainly saw it in one of the publications over the course of the weekend. That'd be quite something.
Yeah, it would, yeah.
But obviously we
need to get seats down in the Hill 16,
Certainly that. But
unless the rules have changed at that point, maybe they will have.
Just don't read the World Rugby Report into Ireland's capability of hosting a major sporting event. That's what FIFA needs not to do.
Or maybe we should read that
and actually
help ourselves out. What are the issues here?
So it'll be a 48-team tournament. So you're trying to think to yourself all the possible venues, but like Ireland would be relied on, you'd suspect, for 2-3 venues: Aviva, Croke Park, Parky Queeve, to actually host these games.
It's a 48-team World Cup.
Yeah, so it goes to 48 for 2026, doesn't it? For the United States, Canada, Mexico.
It's not for Qatar even, no?
For Qatar, there was talks about that, but I actually don't know. To be quite honest with you, I don't know.
Yeah, so maybe they need loads of venues then, right? Maybe you need 5 or 6.
Possibly.
Like 10 or 12 across. Is it Scotland, Wales, and England?
It says Great Britain.
Right.
It says Great Britain. So several Irish, English cities plus Cardiff, Glasgow, and Dublin. Right. Okay. So matches played in several English cities: Cardiff, Glasgow, and Dublin, with the final at Wembley. So perhaps they're taking out the possibility of Belfast in this. But it's very much just sort of the formality of sitting down and perhaps getting this thing together. There will need to be huge government support. Governments are kind of preoccupied at the moment to actually get involved in this. So I don't think you will see some movement on this for quite some time. But it's exciting. It'll be obviously. Well,
it depends. Perhaps now is not the right time for us to be focusing on our administrative ability as a football nation.
Well, it's 11 years away. What age will he be in 11 years?
You'd hope that things have turned around. I'll still be in my, peak.
Pomp.
Young enough, Owen. I'll be at the games.
Will you be press boxing it or prawn sandwiching it?
Who knows at that stage? Who knows where will you be in 11 years on?
Who knows as well. If I'm still on this planet, I'll be doing well. Will the planet even be around in 11 years? Is the real question here.
Good question.
Don't bid for World Cups when the world might not even be a thing.
The back page of the Irish Independent. Gavin's shock farewell leaves Dubs in a spin. Rivals should be careful what they wish for. Champions could be even better without Jim, says Eamon Sweeney. Really? Could they? This could be like a harbinger of something even better to come? Do you think? Is that possible?
Not in the immediate future, I'd say. Like, they can still win in All-Ireland without being any better. So perhaps that argument could be skewed to say that regardless of how it kind of ends up, but I can't see them being any better next year. or the year after. Like there may be a better version of Dublin still to come in the next 5 years.
He's saying that it's not going to be a post-Ferguson, it's going to be a post-Shankly. Bob Paisley arrived, obviously. So Shankly stepped down after the Liverpool job in 74. 3 league titles, 2 FA Cups and the UEFA Cup. What did Bob Paisley do? 6 league titles and 3 European Cups.
Not bad.
And he's saying that Desi could be the new Bob Paisley.
Could easily happen. Could easily happen, I guess. It's a terrifying thought if that is the case, that we are in for a post-Shankly run, because that is... It's hard to think of any more successful turnarounds or transition periods in world sport than what Liverpool managed to do on that case. But, like, is modern GAA more in line with Manchester United post-Ferguson than it would be to Liverpool back in the day? Probably is. But then Dublin are an outlier in all of this, and the resources that they have and the population they have to create a conveyor belt consistently is out of this world. So they will be fine. There is no suggestion that Dublin are ever going to return to what they were 15 years ago, but they might just return to where they were 7 years ago. And in fairness, that is where Pat Gilroy took them to. It would be interesting to see what would have happened if Gilroy was still their manager all the way through this period. Good chance they would have still gone close to a 5 in a row, or they would have been All-Ireland favourites for most of those 5 years. But then again, it is like I just don't agree with that. I don't see that they can actually make that step forward in the near future, because Cluxton will retire at some point.
I guess the bones of his point is that there was perhaps a bit of complacency settling in, and that's one of the reasons why Kerry got close to them this year. That complacency will be jolted out of them with a new manager who will be making sure that they're laying down a marker. But they don't seem like a group of players who need to have markers laid down to them, do they?
Doesn't seem like it. Doesn't seem like there was much complacency there this year.
I don't know. It didn't feel that way. Now, there is a bunch of young lads coming through who are apparently quite good as well. But again, until they've actually done it in that Dublin team, they're just another young lad coming through, Till you actually do what Brian Howard did, you're just somebody people are talking about. And a lot of people get a few games, start in the World Cup, get a few games during the Championship, and don't actually make it to the next level. Don't become starters in that team, and don't replace some of the greatest footballers that county has ever had. Did the Herald continue their top 10?
They did, yeah.
We missed it?
No, we did it on Friday, obviously.
Okay.
The show does happen when you're not here. Cluxton came in at number 1. Do you want to have a guess who came in at number 2? It was actually a little bit surprising, but kind of deserved it at the same time.
Fenton?
No.
Brogan?
No.
So at number 2, Cian O'Sullivan?
No.
So Cluxton's number 1?
Cluxton's number 1.
Okay. And it's this millennium?
Yes.
It's not Kieran Whelan, is it?
No.
Okay. So, remember the current team?
Yes.
Okay. I haven't got that many left. So I've gone Fenton, I've gone Brogan, I've gone Cian O'Sullivan. And Connolly wasn't in the top 10, which was ridiculous.
No.
It's not Philly.
No.
What am I missing? Is it a forward?
No.
So it wasn't Kieran Kilkenny.
No.
It's not Roy O'Carroll because he wasn't in the top 10. So is this Jack McCaffrey?
No.
Right. Right.
Crosshairs are narrowing, I suspect.
So I don't think I am going to.
You do have a show to do, so I'm going to start giving you bigger clues here. Also a halfback.
Oh, James McCarthy.
James McCarthy.
Ah, yeah, okay. How did I forget?
Have you heard of him?
Should have been Footballer of the Year 2 years ago.
Ever since he spent it all... Oh, sorry, you didn't bet on James McCarthy. Back page of The Guardian is, I'm at a great club. Brendan Rodgers says he's committed to Leicester and Arsenal. To Leicester.
He didn't say he's committed to Leicester. He did not say he's committed to Leicester, really.
He did in fact point out that he had a release clause.
It's like, there might be... All contracts have a release clause, is basically what he said. It's an interesting thing to be asked about. Like, the money would need to be sensational to take the Arsenal gig now, because he can have whatever job is next. He could get the Man United gig, probably. He couldn't. Could he?
Yes, he could.
But he managed Liverpool. Can't really, can he? Would Man United not be the type to be like, think about if he was to take the job, how long of a leash he would have from the class of 92 in the media. It'd be a week.
Wouldn't have a leash whatsoever.
Exactly.
And Solskjaer's
Well,
leash...
they would pretend to be being nice to him for a week.
Well, I think the class 92 have proven themselves to not exactly be
Great selectors
the
of
greatest
managers.
selectors of managers, and actually have bad opinion sometimes on Manchester United, and the living embodiment that is the class of '92 managing Manchester United in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is proof of that. So I hope everybody just kind of parks that to one side. If Brendan Rodgers was to get the Manchester United job and Gary Neville was to say something bad about him, Gary Neville can often be very, very wrong. Also on the back page of The Guardian is no quick turn of fortune. Aubameyang strikes twice, but Gunners are left waiting for a elusive win after first game under Freddie Ljungberg.
It was a ridiculous weekend of football, which we haven't spoken about.
Superb, absolutely superb. Is this the most intrigue-filled start with December possibly ever in the Premier League?
Well, I mean, we know who the league winners are in the seasons.
Even allowing for that, you go down through every single club, and there is a good storyline regarding almost every single club. Like, we're talking about the team who are second in the league possibly having their manager ripped away from them. He's talking about a release clause. Third position, who have we got? Manchester City, possibly having their assistant manager ripped away from them and Mikel Arteta, let alone the fact that on the pitch they're flailing around left, right and centre. They're trying to sign the centre-back from the second place at club in the league. In fourth place, we've got Frank Lampard managing Chelsea. You said last week quite accurately that Chelsea could be the team to fall away. I said not a hope. They'll power on through. And they still get beaten at the weekend. They're, as I said last week, they're kind of like the Arsenal of new. A great team to watch. And then it's just a basket case. What is it, 5 points separating 10 places, or at least it was this time last week. Who knows who on earth is going to qualify for the top four? You've got a team, if you look from the bottom up then, a team at the bottom of the league who appointed a manager they previously sacked at the start of the season and then just sacked him at the weekend. You've got a team at the second bottom who should have beaten Arsenal at the weekend and dominated Arsenal at the weekend. The promoted teams are playing brilliant football. Sheffield United have been an example to any team who gets promoted. It's just every single team has something going for it. Like you can see on the front page of the Telegraph here, gone. It looks like Marco Silva is actually a young version of Quique Sanchez-Flores. Silva facing the axe. There's another storyline regarding Everton. Everything has intrigue, Ger. It's a truly enjoyable Premier League season.
Except we know who's going to win the league. We do. We know it's over now, right? Everybody's going to admit.
Yeah, it's done.
We had Phil in last week. It's like, maybe at the end of... If they have this lead at the end of December...
Last week was the last chance for Liverpool fans to yarrow away their chances for the Premier League.
Yeah, it's over now.
That card is played. The game is done. It just seems that there is sorcery on their side. Like, whenever Trent Alexander-Arnold kicks a football, there just seems to be an extra couple of seconds of hang time on the ball. Just that ball will not hit the floor until Virgil van Dijk has nodded that into the back of the net. There is a sense that things can't possibly go wrong for him. Like I saw, I can't remember who had the stat. There's an astonishing one about Liverpool that they haven't won a game by more than one goal since the middle of September, except for the time they beat Manchester City by more than one goal there a couple of weeks back. That it's always been one goal wins. They're doing it the hard way, but imagine if they do start playing well, it will become an absolute runaway train.
The Irish Examiner, in just 17. Classy Nemo power away to 17th Munster title, All-Ireland semi against Corofin next month. That'll be a battle of the heavyweights, all right. And the picture of Jim Gavin is to promote Eamon Morris's column inside. If Stephen Cluxton follows Jim Gavin to retirement, all bets are off for 2020. It was a great piece by Eamon Morris. He, of course, arrived at the same time as Jim Gavin as manager, and you've gone through it again. I just want to do one piece from the back of this from Michael Moynihan. Dublin entered the 7 stages of life after Gavin. The departure of Jim Gavin as manager sparked what will in time be described as the 7 stages of accommodation. First comes surprise, then the dissection of success. That's where we are now. After that, expect the time of revisionism, in which sundry experts point to the lack of top-class opponents his side faced. When's that coming? Today? Is that today? Is that coming? Has that already happened? Are the dark recesses of Twitter already saying this?
I hope we cut that at source and not allow that to grow legs.
This will be followed, as night follows day, by the resurrection of Gavin's reputation as the greatest football manager of all time. Stage 5 is the gloom that will linger in Dublin as the realisation sets in. Stage 6, the burgeoning arrogance of Kerry, Mayo, Tyrone and other supposed heartlands now their nemesis is gone. Stage 7, you'll truly know that's arrived the first time someone says in a right Dublin accent after an Ireland final, you couldn't do it when Jim was there, could you? I don't know why I didn't do that with a Dublin accent, but anyway.
Well, the one county we haven't mentioned in the chasing pack is Tyrone. If Tyrone are going to make a change, because they've been sitting on their hands for long enough, now is the time to do it. Now is the time to get your wheels in motion and actually make a charge at Sam Maguire. Fair enough if you want to stick with the guy who's brought you archaic success and you have this twee notion that he might be able to do it again. Now that Jim Gavin's gone, Now's the time to actually take that leap and say, listen, Mickey, we've had a great innings. Now's the time for us to go somewhere else, because they do have talented youngsters, and they were the better team for a large swathe of the game against Kerry last year. They are possibly closer than Donegal when it comes to winning Sam Maguire. Like, if you really believe that this is going to be a shift of the guard to Jim Gavin's departure, I think Tyrone need to act swiftly. Sean Cavan has been banging on about it long enough that a change needs to happen there.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's not going to happen is the thing. Is Mick O'Dwyer not a better manager? I see Colin Keys saying he is.
Well, I think if time is no object, then I think Jim Gavin is the greatest manager of all time, just because of it was such a well-coached, well-drilled team, and that's not doing a disservice to Mick O'Dwyer either. I think he changed GA at his time as well, and it doesn't help that I wasn't actually around to actually see them in their pomp and actually witness the shift in front of me, because I think it's different. I think if you watch something back, you get it without context a small bit. You can read about the context, but you can't actually feel the context. You can't actually remember what it was like in the early 70s when you can't actually feel how Heffo's team made you feel when you saw them winning All Irelands. Whereas with Jim Gavin, it's much easier for me to judge it. Like, I think as a collection of footballers, I'm not sure if I'm biased, but I'd always kind of cling to the notion that perhaps that Kerry team, maybe you can make an argument that they're better than this Dublin team as a collection of footballers. I think as a coached team and as a manager, this Dublin team is better. Maybe that's unfair on the Dublin footballers, because they've got Cluxton, they've got McCaffrey, they've got Fenton, they've got Conor Callaghan and Mannion.
Nico wins a Leinster with Kildare and a Leinster with Laois.
Well, yeah, that is.
And then had a run with Wicklow through the qualifiers, and there was something else as well I got to mention. So I don't know. Some stuff from Fitzmaurice I thought was interesting was Jim Gavin was always good for having a quiet word with.
Yeah, he had a few tussles with Liam Hassett, says Eamon Fitzmaurice, when Fitzmaurice was Kerry manager. So Hassett would have been Mayor Foran of Kerry. He would come within hearing distance of Liam and pass a comment while looking straight out on the pitch. To everyone else in the stadium, it was as if he was addressing one of his players, but he was making his point well known to Liam. He was a good man to have a word with the sideline official or linesman when he felt it was needed, but it was also always done in a very understated and dignified way. The ultimate mic drop is how Fitzmaurice represents Jim Gavin's decision to walk away from Dublin. I didn't hear this before. He says, the morning of the drawn All-Ireland final, panellists who didn't make this year's matchday squad trained in Parnell Park, presumably as part of their usual matchday process, but also in case of a replay, incredible attention to detail. And then also brings us our latest case of Spygate.
Says not really a spy, though. It's like, can I see the facilities?
Basically, yeah, fairly straight up about it. The week prior to our National League game against them in Tralee in 2017, a scout appeared unannounced. Dublin had not played in Austin Stack Park since 2005, so the venue was unfamiliar. Vince Linan was going about his daily duties when a man approached him, having just arrived on the train from Dublin. He checked the Dublin dressing room, their dugout, and everything else in between, sketching as he went. So sent down from Jim Gavin because they hadn't played there in 12 years. Like, he's just taken everything to a whole new level. There's no question about that.
All right.
The Herald, as you can imagine, leads with that story as well. Dubs mean to move fast. Farrell favourite to replace Gavin before Christmas. They're going to, like I think you had it there earlier on in the Irish Times, Malachy Clerkin saying it. It's going to be before this weekend, perhaps even, when Dublin get their act together and actually have somebody new appointed. Like Jim Gavin's media duties on Friday, it's just brilliant watching them back in hindsight, saying, yeah, 8 weeks now to the National League. And I ain't going to be part of it, was the thing you forgot to say.
The Irish Sun, back page of the Irish Sun, clause for concern. Brendan's Gunners loophole as Foxes hunt Reds. So, like the cat that got the cream, Brendan Rodgers obviously gets a win with VAR and gets the Everton manager sacked, and he's going to maybe create a job opportunity for somebody at Leicester as well. Borough keen to axe John. Robbie Keane is facing an uncertain future at Middlesbrough as the club prepares to sack Jonathan Woodgate. And Chris Hughton is the bookies' favourite to be the third manager at Watford this season. Very quickly, I'll do Honey Monster, the Bromhead ace. Honeysuckle sets Fairyhouse alight with stunning success in Hatton's Grace Hurdle. Envoy Allen oozes class, and foot perfect Fakir Dudaris takes full advantage of Sam Crow's spill on a thrilling day of jumps action.
Irish Daily Mail says an inside job. Dubs want to promote Boss from within. You've got Ballyhale celebrating there as well after their win at the weekend. And Silva stunned, but won't blame VAR for defeat after Leicester's late win against Everton yesterday.
Back page of the Daily Star this morning. I'm not going to leave. Well, maybe I'm not sure. Desi leads Dubs job race is the headline in that piece, so we've kind of covered that now at this stage. And the Mirror, back page of that, is Fred over heels. Make the top four 100%, says Lundberg, despite Gunners dropping yet more points. How did you feel about Freddie Lundberg being your man?
It was going to be what happened once Emery got sacked, but he isn't our man until things kind of progress for a little while longer. I'm not sure when he get the full-time job. I think there has to be almost a sort of...
At the weekend, he was your man.
He's the
What level of confidence do you have?
You have the most handsome manager in the Premier League now, so that fills me with confidence. It is kind of strange to see Lundberg and Per Mertesacker on the side managing a Premier League team.
We're going to be talking with one of the stars of what used to be known as Arsenal Fan TV. It's now AFTV in just a minute about that. Screwfix, though, have had a brilliant Black Friday sale running all weekend. Today, Cyber Monday, is the last day. Save over €25 on the Karcher WV2 Plus window vac with spray bottle, microfiber cloth and detergent sachet. Now €41.45. You can order online right now over at screwfix.ie, but hurry because the offer ends today on Cyber Monday. This morning here on OTB AM, we're giving you the chance to win a €300 Screwfix voucher. There's 2 steps to enter. 1, retweet this morning's hashtag OTB AM or share where you're watching. And 2, tell us who you think Arsenal's next manager should be, not who it will be, but who you think it should be. We're talking football next on OTB AM.